our webinar, Service Design, How to Improve Experiences at a Reduced Cost. I think it's going to be a very exciting webinar, lots of detail that we're going to be going through. Delighted to welcome Amy Scott from Sedulous Consulting to our program. Amy would probably be best known to everyone in the audience, presumably from the Top 50 program, which you were very much involved with for quite a number of years, wasn't it, Amy?
Yeah, I was project director of that for since it launched for 5 years. And then I went off to Australia and discovered service design, and then came back, and I've been doing that ever since.
Well, wonderful. You wrote a wonderful article for us on service design, so I think would tie in very nicely. I also like to welcome back to our webinar program, Tamsin from Nice in Contact. Tamsin, it's lovely to have you back with us, and you're going to be sharing some thoughts about customer experience, and also some findings from a survey that you recently undertook.
Absolutely. I've got some fantastic highlights from really great research, and I want to share. Now, this is findings from the US, Australia, and the UK, and I'm looking forward to sharing those highlights today. Thanks for having me back.
Wonderful. And just a bit of housekeeping. If you want to watch a replay of this session or any one of our other 5 sessions in the conference, you can do that. callcenterhelper.com/recorded-webinars. And we're carrying on the discussion in the chat room. It's been very active in discussion for the rest of the conference. So here's the address you need to log into. I see we've got about half of our audience logged in already. So the address is callcenterhelper.com/chat. Now it's going to be quite a lot of detail, so just you log in, and then you can download the webinar slides on this link here. It does come up into a different window. It's not, we can't unfortunately integrate it within the webinar software. So certainly if you've got big screens these days, and most of us seem to have, you can put the chat room on one side, the webinar slides on the other, so you can follow both things that are going through there, which I think will tie in very nicely. There is a further benefit of being in the chat room, is that we have a bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates, and it's actually a very nice bottle of champagne. We've got this one, Tafinger, one of the best champagne houses, and or if you prefer a box of Godiva chocolates or an Amazon gift card, we can certainly ship that off instead. For the best tip, just use #tip, or if you've got a question, just put in #question, and you can ask questions of Amy or of Tamsin, or indeed you can ask questions of the rest of the audience if you like. So I'm going to kick off proceedings, and I'd like to start off with a poll, and I'd like to ask the question: have you developed customer personas in your organization? So the answers are yes, no, but we're planning it, no, or what are customer personas? So if you just like to put the answers in. Now, I'm not going to answer the question, what are customer personas, because I'm sure Amy is going to do that in a little bit. Amy, do you think many people will have them?
I would say 50% of organizations should have them, because they're the building blocks on which customer journeys are based. And I'll cover much more about this when I go through my presentation.
Okay, well, let's have a look at the result. You seem to have been remarkably accurate on your forecast there. 53% of people have customer personas, 11% are planning, 11% don't, and so probably the first takeaway that we'll do probably in your presentation, Amy, will be to define what are customer personas. So I think probably that's a very good lineup to actually hand the presentation across to you. And if you'd like to take us through your thoughts about how to develop service design.
Sure. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to this afternoon's session. I'm going to talk to you about the benefits of service design and what it delivers to organizations. All too often, customer experience initiatives are brought into the contact center as a way to improve services. Well, in reality, they're really focused on reducing costs and improving productivity. Now, these initiatives do reduce costs, but they're achieved at the expense of upsetting both customers and employees, and therefore they're not sustainable in the long term. What I want to discuss today is that by taking a different approach and focusing on the experience from the customer's perspective, you can achieve long-term cost reductions by reducing failure demand, improving first call resolution, and your cost to serve. This approach allows you to improve the customer experience, leading to greater customer retention, increased repurchases, and if you do it well, positive advocacy. It also delivers a better employee experience because frontline staff aren't having to deal with angry and irate customers. So there's less absenteeism and less attrition, and that reduces your recruitment and your training costs. So by taking this approach to cost reductions, the cost reductions are achieved as a result of improving the customer and employee experience. And it's sustainable in the long term, and it creates a win-win-win for both the organization, the customer, and employees. So how you do this is really where service design comes in. So what is service design? Well, service design helps organizations deliver a better customer experience by intentionally designing the interactions that occur between them and their customers. Most service design projects use this model here called the double diamond. The first diamond helps you to understand why something is happening. It involves research to discover how customers view their interactions with you, and then you need to filter what you've learned, generating insights so you can define more precisely the problems you're trying to solve and prioritize which you need to fix first. The second diamond helps you identify solutions to problems that better meet your customers' needs. This involves designing and developing personas, end-to-end customer life cycles, and specific journeys that customers have over their course of a relationship with you. And finally, then you build prototypes to deploy and test these new services with customers, get feedback on them so you can refine them and improve them before you launch them. It really is an iterative process. Briefly wanted to talk to people about the customer experience pyramid. It's a model that was developed by Forrester, and it helps you identify what customers want when interacting with your organization so you can deliver a better customer experience. The goal is to make the services you offer more useful and desirable, easier to use so they're more efficient and effective, and more pleasurable and enjoyable. It really helps organizations answer 4 critical questions. What do customers want at each stage of their interaction with an organization? How are you currently delivering against these customers' expectations? Where are the customer pain points and what causes them? And how and where can you unexpectedly delight your customer? Now, organizations can understand what customers and employees are saying simply by listening to them. And there are lots of sources of customer and employee feedback and various research methods and ways to gather it. You could survey people after an interaction or transaction to find out how easy it was for them to use or how satisfied customers were with your performance. You could review your employee satisfaction surveys and your exit interviews to understand how employees feel about working with you and why they feel that way. You should begin to analyze your unstructured data, such as call recordings and survey verbatims, and do some extra analysis on these to understand the cause of issues and look for sentiments. You can mystery shop yourselves to see how you perform and your competitors. And last but not least, you can get continuous feedback from your frontline staff. They are the first to know when problems arise because they have a real pulse on what customers are going through and where their pain points are. The other way you can gather information is through social media. This is where the customer is king. It's a direct channel where your customers and your staff can and do tell you exactly what they think of you. And it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and it is up there on the internet forever. And you should look at your social media comments that are going through and your employee comments. Look at sites like Glassdoor. They will give you a real insight to what employees think. And lastly, in service design, we use something called ethnographic research, which is studying people to understand and observe how they actually do and prioritize things. Because as we all know, what people say they do and what they actually do, well, they're two different things. So it all starts with personas. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, what is a persona? Well, I wanted to clear something up from the beginning. Many people confuse personas with customer segments, which are made up of demographic and sociographic information. Whereas personas are synthesized from observing actual customers and how they interact with an organization. They're based on research, they are factual, and they represent known clusters of needs, wants, attitudes, frustrations, motivations, goals, and behaviors, as well as containing some demographic and sociographic information. You also need to look at the context of the interaction. So, for example, if I go to Starbucks and I'm grabbing a coffee on the way to work, I am one persona. But if I am meeting up there with my friends on the weekends, I'm a completely different persona. But a segmentation model would say I am one segment. Now, yes, of course, sometimes personas have a common collective need, such as buying a book on Amazon. But often the same journey differs depending on the personas they're designed for, because different customers have different groups of needs and expectations. So as an example, if you're booking a holiday and you're booking a honeymoon, that trip needs to be as special, romantic, magical, and memorable as possible, versus booking a family holiday, where the key concerns are what facilities are there to entertain my children. Because if my children are happy, I'm happy. Or if you were going to book a private healthcare procedure, if you're doing this as a working person, your motivation for doing it is because you want to have the procedure scheduled around your business commitments and you want security, it's not going to change. Whereas if you're a retiree, you're doing this because you want to get the treatment faster than you could on the NHS to improve the quality of your life. Now, these are two examples, and you can see how the motivations are completely different, and the journeys would need to be completely different. Now, in a B2B environment, you may want to look at personas by size of business, seniority of contact, whether they're a new or an existing customer, or the job role somebody has. Are they a decision maker, a buyer, or a user of a product or services? Now, typically, most companies or brands will have between 4 to 7 personas. Next, I want to talk about customer life cycles and journeys. A customer life cycle is the end-to-end engagement and experience a customer has with an organization. And customers' needs change depending on where they are in their life cycle. Now, a journey is when a customer is trying to accomplish a specific task and it occurs somewhere along the life cycle. And again, this applies in B2B and B2C markets. So the first stage in the life cycle is the before stage. A customer's experience begins even before they engage with you. They discover they have a need, and then they evaluate who could best fulfill that need. In this stage, you need to be useful and easy, because if you're not, your customer will simply find somebody who is, and you will not even know you've lost a customer. So what are the typical journeys in this stage? Well, you may want to look and feel things. You might want to see them, practically hold them in your hand. It's clothing, you may want to try it on. You may have questions you want to ask the company. You'll ask friends or family who they use. You'll look on social media to see what people say about it. In a B2B environment, you may want to go to an exhibition or to look at something or road test it or trial it or ask colleagues who they use for a product or service. Next, you come to the buy and begin phase. This is at the start of the relationship, and it sets the tone for how that relationship will develop. So journeys in this phase, well, it depends if we bought them online or in store. It depends on whether it's a technical product, like an IT product or phone or a white good that may need some help, so it's onboarding. In a B2B environment, you may need help from your account manager. You may need help from technical or support staff. And then we move on to the own and use phase. And this is the longest period that a customer will be with you in their life cycle, and where organizations can really prove their value. So what are some of the journeys we see here? Well, you may have a problem with a product or service, or just a question about it. You may want to make an inquiry, like a billing inquiry. You may want to change a product or service, or you may want to make an insurance claim. In a B2B environment, you may need some help. You might want to speak to finance about changing billing instructions. You may want IT or tech support, and you'll have regular account management reviews. Now, depending on how it goes, how you perform in all stages of the life cycle, particularly in the own and use stage, will determine whether a customer re-engages with you or leaves. Now, if your service was good, they're far more likely to renew your product or service from you. Think about a mobile contract, a utility, an insurer, or buy another product or service from you when their product gets a bit old or out of date. Think white goods, cars, computers. In a B2B environment, they may renew a contract or a license for goods or services. If, however, the experience with the product, service, or company was less than ideal or didn't live up to their expectations, they are likely to go to a competitor. And if the customer decides to leave, how do you want them to leave? Do you want them to leave on good or bad terms? Do you want to make it easy or difficult for them to leave? Because previous or lapsed customers, if they're handled well, can become future customers. I had an experience just last week on this. My AA breakdown subscription auto renewed. I saw my bank statement, realized it was 24 hours after the cool-up program. So I rang the AA expecting a difficult conversation. And I got the agent who said to me, well, you've been a good customer. So you know what we're going to do? We're just going to cancel the service and give you a full refund. Now, imagine how surprised and delighted I was by that. And compare that with trying to cancel a subscription to Sky, which has been described to me by many people as entering the 7 circles of hell. And now the number of journeys that a customer may have, the company may have, will vary, but some journeys are common across most organizations, such as buying things, onboarding, getting help, making a complaint, or leaving. Now, service design also helps you to understand how the entire organization impacts on the customer and all the people that affect them on their journey. You have the front stage. Now, this is everything your customer can see, feel, hear, and touch. This is your shops, it's your contact center, it's your retail staff, your website, your advertising. And then you have the backstage. Now, this is people that are completely invisible to your customer, but they directly impact on the ability of your front stage to deliver the customer experience. Think IT, HR, logistics, operations, and together they form the customer experience ecosystem. And understanding how the front and the backstage work in tandem allows you to align their activities and drive organizational improvements, which enable you to deliver better customer journeys. Another key element of service design is seeing things from your customer's point of view. Now, many companies still take the inside-out view. This is the company-centric approach. It's the organization's perspective on how they view interactions with customers. Now, organizations want to achieve a business goal, and they want to deliver something to customers, but they often expect customers to work around their systems and structures and processes, all of which are put in place to make it more efficient, less costly, and easier for a company to administer. However, if you really want to improve the customer experience, you need to take an outside-in view. This is the customer-centric approach. It's the customer's perspective on their interactions with you. And this allows you to design your systems and processes around your customer's needs to make it easier, faster, and more enjoyable to deal with you. Again, back to that customer experience pyramid. So, if the priority is outside in, you need to understand how customers think. One of the things we remember when all is said and done is how we felt about an experience. It all boils down to the people you deal with and the types of emotions they elicit in you. If the experience was good, well, that's fabulous. But even if a situation is bad, the way it's handled will determine how you feel about a company. We know that emotion, or how people feel about an interaction, has the biggest impact, both positively and negatively, on their likelihood to repurchase and the NPS given. Research, like last year from the Temkin Experience Ranking, clearly showed the significant inroads that have been made to deliver against success. That bottom of the CX pyramid, 71% of customers felt companies were doing an excellent or good job in helping them accomplish what they wanted to do, with only 6% thinking they were doing a poor or very poor job. Next, we move on to effort, or ease, that middle of the CX pyramid. And again, not quite as good as success, but nearly 2/3, or 65% of customers, felt companies are doing an excellent or very good job and making it easy to interact with them. And only 8% thought they were doing a poor or very poor job. However, it is clear when it comes to meeting customers' emotional needs, the top of that CX pyramid, that their needs are not being met. It's the exact reverse of success and effort, with only 7% feeling they were doing just a good job at meeting their emotional needs, where nearly half, or 49%, felt companies were doing a poor or very poor job. And I think this is really quite shocking. And it tallies with the 2017 Forrester Customer Experience Index, which showed that the best performing brands had 17 positive emotional experiences for every negative one, while the worst performing brands only had 2 positive experiences for every negative one. So emotion really is critical to a company's bottom line, and it needs to be measured. Now, everybody listening to this knows that the contact center holds a vast amount of wealth and customer knowledge. It's often one of the richest sources of customer insights in an entire organization. Contact centers capture information across all areas of the customer experience, from purchasing to product and service issues, technical support, billings, complaints. And these moments of truth are frequently not about the contact center, but they cut across all departments and channels, from account management to sales, from retail to website, and they're mostly handling failure demand generated by other areas of the organization. So what are the typical issues they're handling? Well, poor communications from marketing, finance, IT, legal, confusing language, erroneous information about pricing or phone numbers or opening hours, pain points across channels, contradictions in retail and digital channels, or expectations not being set correctly in various channels. They're measuring product and service experience, issues with subpar products or service performance or missing features, or partners or third parties not meeting customers' expectations or providing the wrong information. And lastly, they're dealing with issues involving broken systems and processes. Every large organization knows that it has systems and processes that cause customers pain when they interact with them. Why? Because functional departments are not aligned, and that results in disjointed structures, processes, and systems, such as customers having to repeat themselves when they move from one channel or touch point to another, or even when they move from an IVR to live chat to a bot to speaking to a live agent, or customers having an inability to track the progress of an order on your websites, or self-service challenges. In fact, many of you in the contact center have developed workarounds to meet your customers' needs within the limitations of your processes and systems. Now, we all know that far too many contact centers, organizations still view contact centers as call centers, where their focus and their energy is spent on stripping out costs and making agents as efficient as possible. However, the light bulb moment has been turned on, and some forward-thinking organizations realize that contact centers have deep pools of knowledge about customers, so they're transforming their contact centers into insight centers. And these organizations are reaping the rewards through accessing all this rich information and sharing the intelligence across the business to drive continuous improvement, innovation, and long-term growth. It provides these organizations with a much more holistic view of customers and their actual experiences by using all the valuable voice of the customer feedback captured in the contact center and combining it with other sources such as survey data, matrices like CSAT, NPS, and customer effort, or CRM and other digital analytics. This allows organizations to better meet their customers' needs and expectations. And in addition, contact centers are a great source of competitive intelligence because they hear directly from your customers what they think of your organization and also how you compare to your competitors. From a business perspective, it pays huge dividends to use service design to actively manage customer journeys. Research from the Aberdeen Group has shown that it improves employee engagement because they're not dealing with angry customers most of the time. It allows you to develop more relevant and personalized communications because you have a better understanding of your customers' needs. It reduces your cost to serve because you aren't generating unnecessary demand due to failures in processes and systems. It increases customer referrals and the revenue they generate. And actually, it speeds up your sales cycle because you're removing pain points. And because customers are happier, they're more open and receptive to new offerings. This is backed up by work from McKinsey, which showed that actively managing customers' journeys increases customer satisfaction by 20%, lifts revenue by up to 15%, and can lower your cost to serve by 20%. So organizations are using service design to better understand their customers. It helps them identify the basics they need to fix first to deliver a better customer experience so they can prevent customer irritation and failure, they can engage with customers more effectively, and they can develop products and services that actually meet their customers' needs. It helps them with their organizational structure because it provides insight into the changes that are needed to the way the organization operates, so they can create the right customer experience ecosystem and foster internal communications, alignment, and collaboration. They can improve the way their channels work together, and they can build a truly customer-centric organization by ensuring that their systems and processes are designed around their customers' needs rather than making customers dance to their tune. And last but not least, it delivers business benefits. By understanding your customers and designing around them, you can improve your first contact resolution, you can reduce failure demand and reduce your cost to serve, you can retain more customers, and therefore improve the profitability of your business. So I hope that's given you some useful ideas from this afternoon's session, and it started to get you to look at things differently. All that leaves me to say is really a big thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Amy. I think some very good points there. Service design is an iterative process. I think that's very important. Listen to your staff and analyze call recordings of verbatims to discover the underlying cause of it. Issues, very good advice. We discussed customer personas. They're very, very different from customer segments and very useful in ways of visualizing customers. And also the contact center is one of the richest sources of information about the customer. Harness it, share it across the business, and transform yourself from a contact center into an insight center. And I can guarantee you, if you take that approach, it'll be a lot easier to get budget for some of the projects that you want to do. So now, Amy, you asked a question about customer emotions. So I think now is a good time to ask a poll, which is, do you measure customer emotions? So do you measure customer emotions? Yes, no, but we're planning it, or no, we don't measure emotions at all. I think this is going to be quite fascinating to see what's coming through. Amy, have you got any thoughts about how many people are doing it? Is it a large number?
It's becoming more topical and it's being spoken about more recently in the past 18 months. I would say probably somewhere between 30 to 40% of people may be doing it at the moment, and probably another 25 to 30% are planning it.
Well, I think we've got a key takeaway here that
wow.
Of our audience, only 13% are measuring customer emotions, another 8% are planning it. So I think for the 79% aren't measuring customer emotions, that's probably a key takeaway to have a look at. And there is a technique called the net emotional value. I think we've got an article on Call Center Helper about how you can do that. Certainly things like call recording and speech analytics can be quite useful in that. So that's a bit of a shock. Tamsin, were you surprised by that?
I was surprised by the number of no's. I thought there would be more in the middle.
So well, I think that's a key takeaway. So that your homework for the coming week will be to mug up on how to measure customer emotion, look at whether you can do that. Right, let's have a look at the chat room, some top tips and questions. We asked before the webinar started, if there was one thing you could change about your customer journey, what would it be? Susie said to drive self-service without it being a negative push. Barry said to improve journeys, to direct customers to self-service and remove transnational, or I think that's transactional call volumes. And Lewis said, bringing customers back to shop with us who have had a negative experience. That's quite an interesting way of turning people around. So let's have a look at a couple of tips. Paul has said, where possible, involve your actual customers in designing your customer journeys and personas to ensure you're gaining insight from their viewpoint, and then design the service back from your customer. Amy, that's quite interesting, actually using real customers as part of the personas. I've seen that actually before when, you know, Mrs. Smith has given you some feedback and you can play a video of her feedback, and then that actually becomes, you know, a real life persona, if you like.
Oh, absolutely. When I did work for Optus in Australia, we went into shops and we gave people an A3 document and said, if Optus could improve one thing to make my experience better, what would it be? We gave them a Sharpie, they wrote it out, we took a photograph of them with it. So yes, having videos, having recordings of customers, and actually when you design your personas, you're designing this and you're testing them out then with focus groups or doing persona immersions, which is an ethnographic research type mechanism, to make sure that what you've designed rings true and represents their needs, their motivations, their frustrations, their goals, and their behaviors.
And Tamsin, I quite like that idea of, you know, what would Mrs. Smith think when you're designing a new product or a new service?
Absolutely. Well, you know, working with a lot of call center groups over the years in their call recording, bringing call recording in and developing their quality service, you know, monitoring and you know, listening to a real live actual customer call where they're explaining their issue and that's the real experience right there. It's always interesting to see the insights that come out of that. And I like that this tip here, it's thinking of, you know, it's rather than the inside out, the outside in, you know, thinking from that view.
Indeed. And it looks like that's been extended by Mike 42, who says, we use real customer experiences to build in customer journeys and play back to execs to highlight what is happening in the business and how a journey could look. It can be a huge eye-opener and swiftly generate support to make improvements. Certainly, things like Tamsin call recordings you mentioned are very, very useful for that. You go into a boardroom and you say, I'd just like to play, you know, 3 call recordings, and you know,
very powerful. Whether it's positive or negative, that there's measuring customer emotion, right? That sentiment of somebody describing their, you know, their in that call recording. You can't argue with that. That's
no. And where people have argued with it, I've seen that before. People say, no, that's just 3 instances. And one guy said, well, I've got another 48 that you can listen to if you want to. And it's like, at that point, it was, I think I've lost the argument on that one.
I was going to say, Adobe did this quite successfully. They found that people couldn't purchase multiple licenses for their products. So when they put this into the boardroom and they saw this, the CEO said, you've got to be kidding me. And it set up the Adobe listening post and listening center. And now they completely record customer interactions, and it's changed the way they do business.
No, it's very, very powerful. Well, on the subject of personas, Susie's asked an interesting question. What sort of information should be included in the creation of a customer persona, aside from perhaps age and location? I don't know if you've got any guidance on that, Amy?
Yes. Well, your persona should be based, as I said, on research and feedback and your voice to the customer, and watching customers interact with an organization. You would include age and location, which is geodemographic information. You might include spending patterns and relationships with brands, which is sociographic information. But really what you're trying to capture is, what do they want? What do they need? What are their frustrations in dealing with you? What are their goals and motivations? Like I said, my goal of booking a holiday is going to be very different if I'm booking a family holiday versus booking a honeymoon or a special birthday or an anniversary. Or my motivation behind why I want a private healthcare procedure is very, very different if I am a working person or a retiree. Or my behavior, if I'm trying to fix my phone settings, will be, again, very different for somebody who's 18 and a digital native versus a 75-year-old who isn't that comfortable potentially with technology and is afraid they may break something. So it's a rich understanding of the psychological, the human factors that make people tick. And these are what you need to include in personas. Otherwise, you just design a very vanilla experience, and it doesn't meet anybody's needs.
Indeed, and in fact, we've got a different Susie has added to this one, saying, I would suggest putting less focus on age and location and more focus on reason for contact. And Tamsin, this is an interesting one you might have some thoughts on. For example, a technology company shouldn't assume that a 65-year-old from Cornwall contacting with a tech query would need a different experience from that to a 20-year-old in London. You'll find out what experience they need once they start talking to you. What's your thought on that one, Tamsin?
Yeah, you know what pops in my mind when I see this is there's a lot of data, I mean, research been done about millennials and growing up with only digital and only internet, and that the older crowd, the older generations don't gravitate towards those. And I'm not a millennial, but I totally am getting on board with, the online chat and the convenience of that. And I may know a little bit more than a stereotype will assume, right, about what my tech problem is. So I totally get this. A 65-year-old from Cornwall may not be the same as a 65-year-old from Cornwall. You can't make those assumptions. And I think that we all want that seamless experience, no matter what age you are. So it's true that once the experience that they're looking for, the resolution they're looking for, you'll find out once they start talking.
Indeed. Well, that sounds like quite a good time to start to look at the customer experience survey and some of the findings you're doing. But before that, you do that, I just want to put another poll up, because I think you're going to be looking at different channels. And just want to ask the question of the audience, which communication channels are you currently offering to your customers today? I'd just like to select those that apply. The choices here are phone, email, chat or online messaging, such as Messenger or WeChat or WhatsApp or stuff like that, SMS or text messages, or web self-service. So which channels are you currently offering to your customers? It's quite a fascinating one. We run this from time to time, and it's been quite interesting seeing how much this has changed in the last 3 years. So let's just share the results with everyone here. So the phone, as you'd imagine, is used by everyone. 91% are using email. Email is still a very fast growing channel, but here's probably the fastest one. Wow. Chat online messaging. I think the last time I did this, it was under 50%. That's now 64%. 18% are using SMS or text messaging. That may be something that, for proactive contact, is quite a good way of feeding messages out. And surprisingly, only 59% of people are offering some form of web self-service. The self-service seems a bit on the low side there to me, Tamsin.
That does in the and that's web self-service. That does seem a bit low, and I'm just checking what we've got for in our research, we found that 68% of the consumers that were polled in the research that I'm going to talk about, they were agent assisted, and 32% were self-service on the website. So that was, what was that we just came in with on the poll on that self-service?
59%.
59. So and it was a bit low in the thing. So I agree. It is lower. I mean, we're all using phone right now to talk to each other, even though we've got other technologies, right? Video. Yeah. That's absolutely the most prevalent and most preferred.
Wonderful. Well, probably it's now a good time for you to present the results of your research and your thoughts on designing service.
Share my screen.
There we are.
Can you see all that? All right.
We can indeed.
Excellent. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Tamsin. I've worked in the contact center space for the past 9 years, working quite closely actually with many contact center teams on the front line, developing new technology and solutions to improve their customer experience. I'm quite passionate about improving customer experience as a consumer, but also somebody who works in technology as well. So I'm excited to join you today and to talk about what it takes to compete for today's digital consumers. I thought Amy did a great job of showing us how experience is really the key to leveraging your consumer's whole journey and relationship with your company for positive outcomes. When you really think about it, the dynamics are different now. We really operate and compete in a new experience economy. Companies are no longer able to just win with their products and services. They really have to create lasting experiences, and we see that as the key tool for differentiation. So today I want to share some exciting research with you. This is the only global research study that measures real-world consumer experiences, including satisfaction, loyalty, advocacy by communication channel. It's the second annual NICE inContact Customer Experience Transformation Benchmark. And it reports on more than 2,400 consumers on their most recent customer services experience. The study collected research on over 4,600 total interactions from consumers across the UK, US, and Australia. So what did the study reveal? I want to touch on some highlights with you today. So the benchmark study surveyed across 11 different channels, both agent-assisted and self-service channels, including phone, chat, email, and web self-service, like we saw in the poll. And consumers told us that they expect more, and they're ready to buy more from companies that deliver a great experience every single time. They told us that they will switch companies due to poor customer service. And I say they, the consumers, but we're all consumers. So I kind of put yourself in that spot and think about whether that resonates. For me, absolutely. I will switch if I feel like I've had some poor customer service and I feel bruised by an experience. I may just well switch brands. So we also found that, well, I think to anyone who's ever tweeted or Insta'd or liked something, this is no secret, today's consumers are super vocal about the brands they love. We love to gush and Instagram our happiness. You know, just the other day, I went to an event and I was hashtagging afterwards and gushing all about it online. Consumers are not afraid to share their negative experiences through their network either. And when you think about it, when was the last time you shared an opinion or an experience you had with a product or service on your social media? So I'm really, you know, Shanti, are you one that would share opinions, for example, on your social media? Or do you tend to be quiet?
I tend to be reasonably active on. I've got quite a lot. I think I'm level 7 on TripAdvisor, which is my favorite social sharing.
Yeah, I'm on TripAdvisor as well. So I want to take a look at what we found in our study for demanding consumers. It's no secret that consumer experience has never been so crucial. Today's customers are more likely than ever to abandon a brand after a bad experience. Or a bad trip experience, for example, hotel stay. You know, you get on that TripAdvisor and share your thoughts. But excellent service, receiving excellent service, that can earn a consumer's loyalty for life. And this all really starts at the contact center. Contact centers are a front seat in the driver's seat for this. So today's demanding consumers, they want faster service and direction to the best method of contacting your business, more options to communicate with you, and not only more options and channels, but a seamless transition when they switch between a chat to a phone call. They're looking for that continuity. And it makes sense because I think no one in the history of ever has liked having to repeat their information after they just plugged it into a chat with one agent and then switching to a different channel and having to repeat your whole thing again because you didn't get the same person and the information wasn't retained. So next I want to look at consumer preferences. And here the benchmark study found that consumers still prefer to speak to a live rep for their customer service. And we just saw this, in the poll that 100% of our attendees today are using phone. Phone is still the most used and preferred way than any other method, and we found this globally. Overall, it's phone, chat, and email. These are the top 3 most utilized globally channels, and they're all agent assisted. So that's interesting to note, that it's all agent assisted are the top 3 most utilized channels globally. And while phone is still the most preferred method and most used, in the US, we found that the phone use is dropping. Our US data shows that online chat is gaining ground. This is up from 2017 when we last polled in the US. Another thing that I wanted to note that I found interesting is that in the UK, and our poll shows us this, in the UK, consumers are more comfortable relying on email than any of the other countries. For self-service, the company website is still the most utilized self-service channel. And overall, we found that satisfied consumers appreciated quick, easy service. And for improvement, they really suggested just eliminating the wait and being quicker. Those are all things I'd sign up for as a consumer. So let's look at consumer satisfaction next. So the latest research is indicating, sadly, that customer experience is suffering. Globally, the study found that only 38% of consumers were highly satisfied with their most recent customer service experience. So that's a bit low. Do you find, does 38% sound terribly low to you? Did you expect it to be a little bit higher? John T, any thoughts on that 38%?
I think a lot of surveys show it at that level. I think a lot of contact centers tend to score their customer satisfaction levels about 80 to 90%. But I guess, there's often a difference. I suppose this is highly satisfied, whereas perhaps there may be a certain number who are reasonably satisfied.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And where? Yeah, that's right. And what's useful about this information? It's not just U.S. centric. It's not from one region, but 38% globally is what we found. Now, where are the consumers most satisfied? Well, phone scores highest satisfaction across all the channels at 47%. And mobile apps and the website round out the top. So they're most satisfied with mobile apps, website, and phone scores. Not so good. Well, there's low satisfaction with automated assistance. That was only at 28% satisfaction. And automated phone menu, it performed worse among all the channels, automated phone menu. Globally, consumers are more satisfied with communication. I think I mentioned this through agent-assisted channels. And the study found that most self-service interactions actually end up involving an agent. In fact, 2/3 of agent-assisted interactions will lead to a successful first call resolution. So even where there's the self-serve, there's often that elevation to working with an agent direct, a live agent. 9 in 10 consumers expect fast resolution and a seamless experience when they're moving from one communication method to another, from online chat to a phone conversation, and they expect you to guide them to the channel that will give them the fastest possible resolution. In fact, 94% of us consumers expect to be directed to the method that resolves their situation in the quickest way possible. And I have a quick story to share here because this is something I can absolutely relate to. It's not call center. I was actually at the pharmacy picking up a prescription for my cat. She has thyroid medication and I had run out. And I went over there, before they closed, I had to wait about half an hour for them to fill. They were a bit busy to fill the prescription. When they handed it to me, they spent 30 seconds explaining and giving me a slot of paper that said, sign up online, it will be automatically renewed for you, and we'll give you a call so that you can just come and pick it up. No more waiting. They directed me to the method that's going to give me the quickest possible service, and not a call center, but that really resonated with me. I thought, oh my goodness, why wasn't I doing this? I should have done that. I should have known better. So now I will use that channel next time I go through for that prescription.
That's a great example.
So, no doubt consumers expect more and they're ready to buy more from companies that deliver a great experience every single time. It's that consistency that's really important for the satisfaction. So, I think that the study reveals there are customer experience trends that may seem like a tall order to meet, especially if you're a contact center on a tight budget, you've got a small team, or you've got limited resources. There's a bit of a conflicting mandate. On the one hand, it puts your contact center in the front seat to drive customer experience, but on the other hand, it puts you in a challenging spot to kind of balance the costs with keeping customers happy. At the end of the day, I think no matter the size of your business, one of the things that this transformation benchmark reveals is that exceptional customer service is your brand's competitive currency. And if you keep this in mind, I'd like to look over some planning tips that you can consider today, keeping in mind that exceptional CX every time, that is your brand's competitive currency, and you can spin it to work to your advantage. So some planning tips to leave you with today. First of all, I want to just bring the good news is that customer service agents, the human ones, they're vital to delivering exceptional experience and business results. They're not going away anytime soon. Consumers want more ways to communicate with your company, and customer service that's seamless, convenient, and quick. They expect you to guide them, as I mentioned, to the channel that will give them the fastest possible resolution. Experience absolutely matters. It's no longer about seeing your customers and identifying them as an entity. Today it's really trying to understand their preferences, their priorities, their traits, and that persona. And it's not just about routing the customer to where they can be serviced, but it's about connecting them with the right context and creating that lasting experience. Really important. So to get there, you need a well-designed strategy to bring all the fruits of your technology to bear. And by that, I mean that your strategy is designed to bring benefits to the customer journey, to your business objectives, and the organizational structure, your organizational structure. This is all what Amy discussed earlier about that kind of pyramid, or connecting it all together. So how do you do that? Well, Aberdeen Group, and Amy had also talked about some of their research, but Aberdeen Group has recommended that you build a unified view into your customer's journey. And we also say this as well. With your business, you can personalize interactions if you have a unified view of your customer's journey and get the data flow right, so that it enables you to deliver that personalization to your consumers contacting you. You know a little bit more about them. You know about what services they've interacted with you before. A bit about their journey, and you take that context and put it into keep it in mind when you're interacting with them. But also getting the data flow right so that you can enable information to be delivered to the agents. It will give the agents better efficiencies and effectiveness when they're on the call with the consumer and they have that data about the consumer right in front of them. They're able to give a more personalized interaction. And then you can also put insights from past interactions into use by analyzing how they impacted your operational efficiency and the customer experience. And that's, again, regarding your call recordings and putting those into action and really analyzing how they're impacting. And then enabling your business leaders with reporting and analytics tools so they have that visibility into that. Even if it means bringing the leaders the call recordings and letting them listen for themselves. You know, you need the ability to respond to changing traffic in your contact center, especially across different channels. And Aberdeen found that the best-in-class contact centers are 57% more likely to regularly test and ensure that their activities can scale based on changing customer traffic on those different channels. And finally, be strategic with the customer experience technology that you're choosing for your organization. Almost 49% of contact centers have some form of cloud infrastructure or are looking to take advantage of the many benefits that the cloud can offer. So speaking of investments and customer experience technologies, I have one more tip I'd like to share with you. And that is, since the world is moving to cloud, and contact centers are no exception, many contact center leaders are looking to migrate to cloud, and there are lots of options out there, more than ever. So just wanted to point out that you don't want to get caught with that perception gap that all clouds are the same. In fact, they're not. Not all clouds are the same. In fact, deployment models are many and varied. And Aberdeen, speaking of many, Aberdeen found that many contact centers that made the move to a cloud-based contact center actually reported their performance fell short of their expectations. And they found that one of the reasons was, for one, just because the cloud can provide certain benefits, it doesn't mean that the companies are aware of them or using them. But overall, the Aberdeen research showed that companies are really kind of struggling to realize the expectations that drove their cloud investment, and they really lack that well-designed strategy. So building a business case for customer experience and quantifying the benefits of investing in new technologies, it's a really involved process. NICE and Contact commissioned Forrester Consulting to conduct a total economic impact study. And through interviews and feedback from 4 customers, the analysts examined the potential return on investment that enterprises can realize by deploying NICE and Contact's CX1. And that's a unified cloud-native CX platform. Forrester concluded that CX1 enabled significant savings, and I'm showing you here on this in UK pounds the savings. But this information, this data, is also available for you to download in US dollars as well. And they showed significant savings with 3-year composite financial impact. This report will be available for you to download from our page, so I highly recommend that you take a look at this resource. And today, I did mention a few resources, including that our transformation study. I highly recommend that you take advantage and download these resources. Your ability to meet and exceed customer and employee expectations is the single most critical factor for your organizational success. And I think that you'll see that even when faced with a tight budget, your contact center can make smart investments today that will lead to transformational results tomorrow. And so I highly recommend you download and take advantage of these resources, because I couldn't possibly cover all of this today. Lots more in there. And before I let you go today, I want to let you in on this amazing opportunity for those of you who are in or around the UK. This is happening in early June in London, and it's called Interactions. If you've ever had a chance to attend, you already know what I'm talking about. It's a fantastic event. There are over 10 tracks and 50 breakout sessions, including this year's celebrity keynote is Stephen Fry. And I hope to see you there in June. If you have a chance to come by, that would be fantastic, and attend the conference. I highly recommend you check out the website, and you can register through the website.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed for that, Tamsin. Well, I'm certainly going to be at the Interactions conference. I think I've been to 4 of the last 5 years. Very good conference overall. And just probably quite a good time now to say, if you'd like to have a demonstration of the NICE in Contact CX1 platform, would be good. Some great takeaways there. Customers want fast resolution to problems and a seamless experience. And really part of that is it's up to us to guide consumers to the channel that has the fastest resolution time for them. Because if they get fast resolution, that's the channel they use next time. And don't forget that the phone has the highest customer satisfaction score. I think in the live chat we often forget that. Got time for just a couple of tips and questions before we do. Brett has asked, is the corporate leadership too focused ultimately in cost benefits before experience? Shouldn't first contact resolution, lower effort and customer satisfaction lead to improved net promoter score and a drive towards savings as a benefit of service redesign? Amy, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on this.
Well, this is what I started saying in the beginning of my presentation. Instead of focusing on reducing cost and improving efficiency, and lots of times marketing tends to be responsible for the customer experience, but they're only involved in the acquisition phase of the customer, and operations are involved in delivering the experience. And operations are usually tasked with reducing costs and improving productivity. So if you focus just on that, you're going to make short-term savings, but they're not sustainable in the long term. If you focus on the customer, you improve their experience, you improve the employee's experience, you then reduce your cost to serve, you improve first call resolution, and you reduce failure demand. So everybody wins. The business gets the cost savings, and staff and customers are happier.
Indeed, and Tamsin, Philip agrees with your comments about the seamless transition between web and the phone. He says, all my agents have access to web chat and can pull transcripts when taking over a call. This way we ensure there is no repetition. Well, I'm afraid we've reached the end of today's webinar and today's conference. It's been an absolute fascinating conference. I'd like to know what you liked best about today's webinar. We have a winning tip, drum roll, comes from Helen35. We want our customers to be able to contact us in the best way for them. So we have all channels, including a messaging system through our self-service online portal. If the customer is using self-service, we don't want to push them to use a different channel, such as the phone, if they have a question or an issue. I think it's a great tip there. If you'd like to complete the survey when you leave, we'll have recordings for all sessions available later on this afternoon. And just very much like to thank our two speakers today. Amy, thank you ever so much for joining us.
No problem. Glad to be here.
And Tamsin, thanks for joining in from Toronto to join us today. I look forward to seeing you at the event in London in June. I'd just like to say thank you to everyone in our audience. We're going to take a little bit break for Easter, and we'll be back after Easter with our early summer series of webinars. Thanks everyone for joining us, and hope you have a really great Easter. Thanks then. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.